The hostess's words hung in the air like a death sentence. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrington, but we're completely booked." James Harrington, worth $8.7 billion on paper, stood helplessly in the crowded restaurant foyer, his expensive watch marking the final hours of another lonely year. If you're touched by what happens next, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories that remind us what truly matters in life. James clutched his reservation confirmation email, bewildered. There must be some mistake. I made this reservation weeks ago. The young hostess looked genuinely apologetic. "I'm so sorry, sir. We had a system crash this afternoon. Several reservations were lost, and we've been overbooked all evening. It's New Year's Eve, we simply don't have a single table available." James glanced around the packed restaurant, the cheerful noise of celebration only highlighting his isolation. 52 years old, at the pinnacle of success, and completely alone on the last night of the year. The irony wasn't lost on him. He could buy this entire restaurant chain with what amounted to pocket change, yet he couldn't secure a simple dinner table. "I understand," he said quietly, his voice barely audible above the festive din, "thank you anyway." As he turned to leave, a voice called out from across the restaurant. "Hey! Over here!" James looked up to see a man in his mid-30s standing at a table, waving enthusiastically. Beside him sat a young girl, perhaps 9 or 10 years old, with the same warm smile as her father. The man gestured to an empty chair at their table. "We've got room. Come join us." James hesitated, unaccustomed to such spontaneous kindness from strangers. The hostess looked relieved. "Sir, if you'd like to accept their offer, I can escort you to their table." Something about the genuine warmth in the man's invitation broke through James's usual reserve. "Thank you," he said, following the hostess through the crowded restaurant. The man stood as James approached, extending his hand. "I'm Mike Collins, and this is my daughter, Emma. We couldn't help overhearing, and, well, no one should be alone on New Year's Eve." "James Harrington," he replied, shaking Mike's hand. "Thank you for your kindness." Emma smiled up at him. "We have extra breadsticks too." For the first time that evening, James felt a genuine smile cross his face. "That's very generous of you." As James settled into his seat, he couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between himself and his dinner companions. While his tailored suit probably cost more than Mike earned in a month, there was an ease and contentment about the father and daughter that all his wealth had never brought him. "So, what do you do, James?" Mike asked, passing him the breadbasket. James hesitated. His name and position usually changed how people behaved around him. "I'm in business," he said vaguely. "Investment management." "Cool," Mike nodded. "I'm a high school science teacher." "Not quite as exciting, but I love it." "Daddy's the best teacher in the whole school," Emma added proudly. "Everyone says so." Mike laughed, ruffling his daughter's hair. "Well, not everyone, sweetheart. But I try my best." As the evening progressed, James found himself drawn into their world. Mike spoke about his passion for teaching, the challenges of raising Emma alone since his wife's death 3 years ago, and their small traditions that made life special. Emma chattered about her science fair project, her soccer team, and her dream of becoming an astronaut. They didn't ask about James's wealth or status. They simply included him in their celebration, treating him like any other person. It had been so long since anyone had seen him as just James, not the billionaire CEO of Harrington Global Investments. When Emma excused herself to visit the restroom, Mike's expression grew more serious. "I hope you don't mind us hijacking your evening like this. Emma was the one who spotted you first, actually. She said you looked sad, and no one should be sad on New Year's Eve." James felt something catch in his throat. "Your daughter is very perceptive. And kind, like her father." Mike shrugged. "We've had our share of hard times. After my wife died, there were many nights I felt completely lost. But Emma taught me that connection is what gets us through. Sometimes it's the smallest gestures that save us. When the bill came, James reached for it automatically, but Mike gently intercepted it. "This one's on me. I insist." "Please, let me," James protested. "It's the least I can do for your hospitality." Mike shook his head firmly. "You were our guest. Maybe next time you can get the check." Next time. The simple phrase implied a continuation, a relationship beyond this chance encounter. James couldn't remember the last time someone had suggested a "next time" without an agenda. As midnight approached, the restaurant staff distributed party hats and noisemakers. Emma insisted James wear a glittery silver hat, giggling as she adjusted it on his head. For once, he didn't worry about his image or dignity. He simply enjoyed the moment. The countdown began, voices joining together across the restaurant. 10. 9. 8. James looked at Mike and Emma, their faces alight with joy and anticipation. 7. 6. 5. He thought about the empty penthouse waiting for him, the meeting scheduled for January 2nd, the empire he'd built that had somehow become both his greatest achievement and his prison. 4. 3. 2. 1. Happy New Year. The restaurant erupted in cheers. Emma blew her noisemaker enthusiastically, while Mike raised his glass of sparkling cider. To new friends and new beginnings. James raised his own glass, something shifting inside him. To new beginnings. As they left the restaurant, exchanging phone numbers with promises to meet again, James realized he'd received a gift far more valuable than any business deal he'd ever closed. For a few hours, he'd been reminded of what it felt like to be human, to connect without pretense or expectation. The next morning, James sat in his office overlooking the city, thinking about Mike and Emma. On impulse, he called his assistant. "Janet, I need you to find information on the science department at Westridge High School. And set up a meeting with our foundation director. I have some ideas I'd like to discuss." Over the following weeks, James found himself texting Mike regularly. They met for coffee, then dinner. James attended Emma's soccer games, cheering louder than anyone when she scored her first goal. He established an anonymous donation to revitalize Westridge High's science labs and create a scholarship fund. But more importantly, he began to change how he lived his own life. He delegated more responsibilities at work, making time for things that mattered. He reconnected with his estranged sister and her children. He started volunteering at a local youth center, sharing his business knowledge with teenagers from underprivileged backgrounds. 6 months later, as summer arrived, James invited Mike and Emma to his beach house for a weekend. Sitting on the deck watching Emma build an elaborate sandcastle while Mike grilled burgers, James reflected on how dramatically his life had changed since that New Year's Eve. "Penny for your thoughts?" Mike asked, joining him with 2 cold drinks. "I was just thinking about how different things might be if you hadn't waved me over that night," James admitted. "I've spent decades accumulating wealth, thinking it would bring me happiness. But it took a science teacher and a 9-year-old to show me what I was really missing." Mike smiled. "Emma has that effect on people. After Sarah died, I thought our lives would never be whole again. But Emma taught me that hearts can expand. There's always room for more love, more connection." "She taught me the same thing," James said quietly. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the water, Emma called them down to see her finished sandcastle. It was an impressive structure, complete with towers, a moat, and a drawbridge made of driftwood. "It's magnificent," James told her sincerely. Emma beamed. "I made it for both of you. See, this tower is Daddy's classroom, and this one is your office, Mr. James. And the bridge connects them." James felt his eyes grow moist. "That's perfect, Emma. Absolutely perfect. Later that night, after Emma had fallen asleep, Mike and James sat on the deck under the stars, talking quietly. "You know," Mike said, "when Emma and I saw you standing alone in that restaurant, we had no idea who you were. It wasn't until a week later that I Googled you and nearly fell out of my chair." James laughed. "Would it have changed anything if you'd known?" Mike considered this. "Maybe. Not the invitation itself, but I might have been more intimidated. I'm glad I didn't know. It let us see the real you, not the CEO." "The real me had been lost for a long time," James admitted. "I built this company from nothing, and somewhere along the way, I forgot why I was doing it. My wife left me 15 years ago because I was never home. My friends became business associates. Even my charity work was more about tax benefits than actual impact." "And now?" Mike asked. James looked out at the dark ocean, the rhythmic sound of waves providing a backdrop to his thoughts. "Now I understand that success isn't measured by the number in my bank account. It's measured by moments like this, by connections, by making a difference in someone's life." "You've made a huge difference in ours," Mike said quietly. "You've made a bigger one in mine," James replied. 1 year later, on New Year's Eve, James found himself back at the same restaurant. This time, he wasn't alone. Mike and Emma were with him, along with a dozen teenagers from the youth center, James's sister and her family, and several of Mike's colleagues who had become friends. The hostess recognized him immediately. "Mr. Harrington. Your tables are ready." As they settled in, Emma, now 10 and increasingly confident, proposed a toast. "To the best year ever, and to the night when Daddy and I found our James." Glasses clinked as James looked around at the faces of his new family, not related by blood but connected by something equally powerful. He thought about the lonely man who had stood in this restaurant doorway a year ago, and marveled at how a simple act of kindness had transformed not just his life, but the lives of so many others through the ripple effects of connection. When midnight struck, James wasn't watching the clock. He was too busy living in the moment, surrounded by the love he'd never thought possible. And as the new year began, he made a silent promise to himself, to never forget that true wealth wasn't found in his portfolio, but in moments like these, in connection, in kindness, in the family you choose, and in the simple joy of belonging. The story of the lonely billionaire and the single dad who changed his life would continue to unfold in unexpected ways. But one thing was certain: James Harrington would never spend another New Year's Eve alone. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more content that celebrates the power of human connection. Sometimes the smallest gestures can change a life forever. What act of kindness have you experienced that made a difference? Share in the comments below.